Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Zeke-ollege Football. I am your host, as per usual, Zeke. Um, yeah, uh, as you can probably tell, not feeling great. I got a flu shot earlier today, so we are thugging it out through this episode. But ooh, uh, had a sneeze, lost that sneeze, so let's hope it stays that way. Okay. Week 11. Week 11 was very interesting for a couple different reasons. We had a lot more clarity going into this than we had any other time before this season. And the reason for that was that between my last episode and this episode, and I know my last episode was delayed a little bit, that was because of this, the first college football playoff poll came out. And it gave us a little bit more clarity on what the playoff committee was looking for. So we saw that they were prioritizing resume. They were prioritizing teams who had won big games over teams that really hadn't. The only exception to that was BYU under Indiana, but that might be conference related rather than actual resume related. But for the most part, teams like Ohio State, who up to that point had beaten Penn State, who had consistently looked like a quality team. They ranked them above Georgia, who had struggles but also had some pretty solid wins as well. And then they did also respect the head-to-head with Kansas State, Colorado, with Texas A&M and LSU, as well as LSU and Ole Miss. So there was some head-to-head respect as well. Louisville, Clemson, another example with that as well. But before we get into what happened in week 11, my apologies, everyone. Uh, let's start talking about Conference USA. So the big story for me with Conference USA, they're not having the premier highlight games anymore. We're not looking at Conference USA in that primetime slot right now. Conference USA instead is occupying uh, the same spot that they usually occupy. And we're getting the MAC in that midweek spot and that priority prime time viewing. So, a little bit hidden some of these games were, but they were good games this weekend. For starters, a overtime thriller for one of the top teams in the conference. Jacksonville State, undefeated 5-0 in conference play. Uh, and they were close to losing this game against Louisiana Tech. Uh, they were down by 11, or pardon me, not 11, down by 9 at, uh, you know, about 6 minutes left in the game. They had a field goal and then at the time, it was a potentially game-winning touchdown, although they missed the extra point on this Hail Mary and goes to overtime, and Jacksonville State wins in overtime. But a hectic game, a chaotic game, but Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky both clearly on the same path to try to get to that CUSA title game this season. In other overtime news, UTEP uh, wins against Kennesaw State, the battle of the two worst teams in college football at the time. It was a 1-7 school against a 1-8 school. Two teams that are really, really struggling at that point in the season. And great game. Skylar Locklear had a hell of a game. 4 touchdowns. Uh, didn't turn the ball over. Uh, yeah, it was just a good performance by UTEP. They were able to get the win. And it did have an unfortunate after effect to that. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Which was that Kennesaw State's head coach Brian Bohannon was fired. He was fired on Sunday, and I honestly can safely say this is bad for college football. Um, Now, for those of you who do not know, Bohannon has was the only coach in Kennesaw State history. Okay. From the inception of the program, he was hired. He built the program up well enough that it was able to be moved to the FBS. Now, did the FBS transition go well in year one? No, not really. Should they have probably moved up to the FBS at that moment? No, probably not. But is that Bohannon's fault? No, no, it's not. Is that something that means that the program couldn't be fixed by Bohannon? Probably not as well. I think that Bohannon, if he had time to recruit at an FBS level, could have potentially built this program up again like he did in the FCS ranks. So to show that you don't have the patience to deal with one season, realistically 1 season of adversity, I know that they had a little some troubles in the like pre-transition years, couple losing seasons back to back. But again, when you're moving up a level of competition, saying that the leash is that short is not only is it surprising to me, but it makes me wonder as other coaches are going to look for this opportunity. Why choose Kennesaw State over another job, right? What's the draw there if this administration is so short-sighted? Am I going to have time to build up the program, or am I just going to be like a one and done, a 2 year blip on the radar? Are they going to give me the time to get my guys in the building? Are they like, what's the draw there? And it really paints a bad precedent because if you look at other teams that are going to be transitioning up to the next level, it's such a win now mode where, uh, you know, we've seen some schools hop into the FBS and immediately start thriving. Schools like Jacksonville State, like I just mentioned, James Madison. Not every school is going to have that, though. Look at Sam Houston last year, transition year. They weren't good. They weren't good. They were 3-9. Not a good program. But they stuck with Casey Keeler, and all of a sudden, you look at them this year, they're a pretty good football team. They're a team that wins. They're a team that is third, I believe. Yeah, I think they're third in the CUSA. And all of a sudden, you start to wonder, was it premature? Did they get fired prematurely? I think they did. I think they fired Brian Bohannon prematurely. And I don't know, that decision really rubbed me the wrong way. Because, again, I think it just sets a bad precedent. It's similar to fan bases throwing trash on the field now. You see the precedent set once, and it gets replicated, replicated, replicated. And I just don't like that. Okay, let's move on to the MAC. It was the first week of midweek Maction. Relatively unchaotic, I would say. Um, best game of the slate was Miami, Ohio against Ball State on Tuesday. But the ramifications that are scattering throughout the MAC are what's really important to me. As of right now, there's a four-way tie for first place. We have Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green, and Western Michigan all at 4-1 in conference play. All of those programs are 4-1. So, you're looking at this and, you know, who's gonna bow out? What's gonna give? Because, some of these teams, Western Michigan, Bowling Green they're playing each other tonight. Like that game is happening tonight. So that's certainly one that I'm going to keep an eye on for MAC title contention because you look at a team like Toledo, they have two losses, but with the way the MAC's playing out, they might still be in a spot to make the title game. You know, no one has really established themselves to the point where I think, they're a clear favorite. Bowling Green's been playing well, but they have a loss. Western Michigan's been playing well, they have a loss. Everyone has lost at least once. And honestly, some of the the two lost teams seem more competitive than some of the one loss teams at times. So it's going to be interesting to see down the stretch how that pans out. Also interesting to note, there are currently six teams in this conference that are one win away from making a bowl game. Miami, Ohio, 5 wins. Bowling Green, 5 wins. Western Michigan, 5 wins. Buffalo, 5 wins. Eastern Michigan, 5 wins. Northern Illinois, 5 wins. The only two teams that have made a bowl game already are Toledo and Ohio. That's it. Everyone else is either one game away from a bowl or is 3 games away, or then you have the Akron and Kent State tier, which those two programs, whew. But let's talk about Kent State for a second. They are truly terrible this year. Like, to the point that it's not, I was gonna say it's not even funny. It is funny, a little bit. Sucks to be a Kent State fan right now. They are 0-9 on the season, 0-5 in conference play. They lost to St. Francis, Pennsylvania earlier this year, an FCS team. And the stat that I saw, which I think was the most telling, was that they have not led at all this season. So not only have they not won a game, not only have most of these games not been competitive, but they haven't had a lead at all this year. Do you know how tough that is? To be so bad that you don't have a single lead on the season? To be so bad that even if you get the ball first, you're not scoring? Not once. It's it's laughable. Kent State used to be a proud program. It's laughable. It really is. Let's move on to the Sun Belt. Um, Not a lot of huge storylines out of the Sun Belt this past week, to be honest. For starters, both Coastal Carolina, Texas State got some crucial wins uh, in games that I thought were going to be a little tougher than they were. But crucial wins to try to fight for bowl eligibility. Coastal beat App State. Texas State beat ULM. So they're both sitting at 5-4 right now, just one game away. But for ULM, and this is the tough part, they need one more win in order to make a bowl game. They were at 5 wins pretty early on in the season. They faltered a little bit down the stretch. They play at Auburn, at Arkansas State, who's a solid team and is also one game away from making a bowl as well. And then they end the year hosting Louisiana, who uh, is a quality team right now, 8-1, 5-0 in conference play. Uh, just very dominant wins. Um, Only loss coming to a Tulane team who's really been sort of finding their own footing as well in the American. I don't know where that win's going to come. My best guess would be maybe the Arkansas State game. Maybe. But it'd be really disappointing for this season for ULM to end with a 5-7 finish and missing a bowl game. All right, we're gonna move on to the American, and I just want to talk about East Carolina for a second because this is a team that fired their coach mid-season, and since then they've won 2 straight. Now, granted, the competition that they're winning against is not great, but they've won 2 straight, and their offense has looked phenomenal. In the game against FAU, Caton Hauser accounted for 6 touchdowns, 5 through the air, and one on the ground. So something to look out for. The Pirates, we thought all was lost when they fired their coach. Thought maybe, it's another sort of suspect season, but they're fighting to make a bowl game here. One game away, and they play against a Tulsa team that's not particularly good this upcoming Thursday. So certainly something to look out for there. And then looking towards uh, other teams in the American, man, UAB is just disappointing. Uh, they were up 20-3 at the half against UConn, blew that lead, and ended up just losing the game outright, 31-23. So they scored 3 points the entire second half and let up 28. That's just embarrassing. Moving forward, talking about the Mountain West. New Mexico able to beat San Diego State uh, on the road. A road win for a New Mexico team that a lot of people sort of wrote off early on in the season, myself included. Um, when New Mexico lost to Montana State, they started off 0-4. I was thinking, oh great, another terrible season. Maybe they can't turn it around in year one, but then they rattle off 3 straight wins and then get their fourth win on the season. They're still eligible to make a bowl if they win out. It's going to be tough too. facing off against Washington State. So it'll be tough to win out, but for New Mexico's, I think just having the ability to win on the road, having this sort of performance that they're having this year, Devin Dampier seems like someone that you can build a program around. Pardon me. Yeah, passing yards not amazing, but counting for over 3,000 total yards, uh, and 24 total touchdowns, not terrible at all. So, I don't know. I think that it's a good start for Bronco Mendenhall to rebuild this program. Uh, Speaking of programs that might need rebuilding, Fresno State, they've really taken a hit after Jeff Tedford's had to step away again for health reasons. Um, they've been pretty underwhelming this year. 3-3, 5-5 overall. You look at that and you might think, oh, that's not terrible. But realistically, Fresno State is a program that's typically built for better than this. Uh, they're a program that has high expectations, and they usually exceed those expectations. So, I'm looking at a 5-5 start, and I'm thinking that's a downgrade. And I think a lot of Fresno State fans are thinking that as well. And then just one final piece on the Mountain West. I've seen a lot of people hating on Ashton Genty and specifically his Heisman campaign. They're like, "Oh, well, anyone could uh anyone could, get those kind of stats with that many carries." I I have to strongly disagree. Averaging 7.5 or 7.7 yards per carry for 23 touchdowns, I don't think that's normal. And I think that saying that is kind of disrespectful, honestly. And is 224 carries a lot? Sure, but you have to realize that people are stacking the box. They are specifically designing their game plan around him, and he's still putting up these numbers. So, it's just I don't get it. I don't understand how people can think that. I also want to touch on something from the Pac 2. Man, my voice is gonna be gone by the end of this. Okay. I want to touch on something from the Pac 2. Oregon State. Uh, there was some transition here. The Beavers, they lost to San Jose State. They're 4-5 now. And in order to make a bowl game, they have to pull off an upset at some point. So whether or not they upset Boise State or Washington State, they'll have to beat one of those teams if they want to make a bowl. And it's just a very disappointing first season for Trent Bray here. Um, like I understand the situation that he's put into was not great, but you'll want to see a little bit more out of a team that was playing at a power conference level. Lost to Nevada's not going to cut it. Lost to San Jose State's not going to cut it. They've lost four in a row. So disappointing for the Beavs. Let's move forward, talk about some ACC football. Georgia Tech. Oh. They started they started off their season with a improbable upset over then 10th ranked Florida State. We found out pretty quickly that Florida State was not very good, but we also knew that they were a dangerous team, and they showed that again. People sort of forgot about Georgia Tech throughout all the craziness that has happened this season, but they take down number 4 Miami, giving them their first loss on the season. So, a huge upset in the ACC. And that wasn't the only one. Virginia upsetting Pitt 24 to 19. Pitt takes its second loss in a row. The Cavaliers just one win away from a bowl game. Got a tough final stretch, though. They play Notre Dame on the road. They host an SMU team that's on top of the ACC standings. And they finish off their schedule with a rivalry game against Virginia Tech, which I hate to break it to you if you are a Virginia fan, but you probably already know this at this point. Virginia Tech is uh, well in the lead in this rivalry. UVA's most recent win was 2019. Uh, and since then, some dominant performances, including last year was 55 to 17. So not a great place to be if uh, if you're UVA. But I like the fight that they've had. I like the quarterback play from Anthony Calandria, and it's a good upset. And then finally, didn't want to overshadow this, but Cal. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm really trying my best here. Cal getting their first ACC win uh, in program history over Wake Forest on Friday. Good win for the Golden Bears as they also fight towards a bowl game as well. 12. The Holy War absolutely lived up to the hype. BYU won it 22 to 21. There was a controversial holding call on fourth down, which extended the game. I saw it live. It was holding. Uh, I'm sorry, Utah, if you are upset by that, but it was holding. So it's unfortunate to lose a rivalry game in that way, but you still had plenty of opportunities. You let them win it. In the end, I don't know what to tell you. It was holding, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a little biased. Kansas State, or pardon me, not Kansas State, just Kansas upset Iowa State, giving them their second straight loss. So with Iowa State and Pitt going from being undefeated to most likely going to be out of the playoff rankings when they come out. Oh my goodness. Uh, and then finally, I want to give a little highlight to both Arizona State and Colorado. They just seem to find themselves winning. Arizona State with a good win over UCF, Colorado with a win over Texas Tech. For their first years in the Big 12, or for Colorado, first years back in the Big 12, good performance in year one of the new conference. For the Big Ten, we didn't really see a shakeup at the top. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, all of them win. Indiana played the closest with their game against Michigan, but a win's a win. And then finally, UCLA just found their footing under Deshaun Foster. Took out Iowa on Friday, and good win for the Bruins. 20-17, and don't look now, but 3 wins in a row for a UCLA team that's gonna look to fight for a bowl game here. They have a game against Washington uh, on Friday again. So if they win that one, then they can most likely make a bowl game in their game against either USC or Fresno State. So there's still a chance that this 4-5 team, who was 1-5 just a few weeks ago, could make a bowl. So something to look out for there. And then finally, let's talk SEC football before I break things down and most likely go on my merry way. Normally, I would talk about the polls, the AP poll, but my voice is just not doing well right now. So we're gonna sort of tough through this, and then uh, we will probably end the episode there. But SEC, Ole Miss. I want to start off with ah Ole Miss able to suffocate Georgia with their second half defense. The Rebels, a 28-10 victory, able to give Georgia their first non-Alabama loss since 2020. So, uh, absolutely something that is monumental, and I'm very impressed with how the Rebels played. The LSU defense also, in another big primetime ABC SEC matchup, really disappointed. Uh, LSU came into that one. We thought it was going to be competitive. They could not stop Jalen Milroe. 4 touchdowns on the ground, and the Crimson Tide cruised to victory, 42-13. In other SEC news, South Carolina. I think they deserve to be ranked after they took out Vanderbilt handily. Uh, South Carolina's been playing some good football. They beat Texas A&M. Now they beat Vanderbilt. They have a close loss early on in the season to LSU, lost to Ole Miss, lost to Alabama. Close as well. So 3 quality teams, 3 ranked teams are the only ones that they've lost to. Big time game against Missouri coming up this week. And speaking of Missouri, wild back and forth game in the second half against Oklahoma in the battle for the Sooner Peace Pipe. Ends with a scoop and score touchdown for the win for the Tigers. Again, offense finding a little bit of rhythm under Drew Pine, but you want to see Brady Cook back for this game against South Carolina, is what I would say. And let's say goodbye now to a couple teams that were eliminated from bowl games. FAU, very disappointing season for them. They thought that they could turn things around with Tom Herman, but he's headed closer and closer to the chopping block. Same with UAB and Trent Dilfer. Uh, that one's proving to be less than admirable hire. Temple, uh, it's it's Temple eliminated from bowl game. Rice already fired their coach, just looking towards next season. New Mexico State had Jerry Kill step down due to medical issues before the season. Oh, technically at the end of last season. And Tony Sanchez has not done the best job yet. Middle Tennessee State, another disappointing season for Derek Mason's squad. Georgia State, another team that lost their coach early on and is starting anew. And then finally, what a disappointing year for Oklahoma State. 7 straight losses for the Cowboys. Uh, once Alan Bowman is gone, I feel a lot better about how this program will turn out. Uh, Garrett Rangel showed flashes before he was injured, but maybe a change needs to happen at the top. I've been hearing rumblings about people unhappy with Mike Gundy, saying he needs to leave. We'll see whether that's the case or not with a legacy coach like Gundy. Um, on brighter news, there are a couple teams that are bowl bound this week. Georgia Tech got to 6 wins. Same with TCU, Liberty, Ohio, Marshall, South Carolina, and San Jose State. All of them reaching that 6 win threshold this week. So congratulations to all those squads. And then finally, I want to highlight because we're getting to the point in the season where there actually are some of them. Ones that I'm calling bowl bid games. So it's games where both teams are at 5 wins, and the winner of that game will be going to a bowl. And there are 2 of them this week. Bowling Green versus Western Michigan on Tuesday night. That has MAC title ramifications as well. But, an extra bonus point winner becomes bowl eligible. And then also West Virginia versus Baylor as well. So winner of that one will become bowl eligible. And that will do it for this episode. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I mean, my voice is dying. I will be in better health for the next episode. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Drop a like if you like this video. Drop a comment. Tell me to get better so I can get better. And I appreciate everyone for sticking with me for this video specifically because I know I was coughing and sniffling a little bit throughout it. So hopefully the rest of your day will go well, and I'll see you all next week.